Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pass the Noise, the podcast where we have open forum discussions. I am your co-host, Elder Michael Hightower, joined as always by Apostle T.B. Walker. And yeah, like I said, this is open forum. This is an open forum discussion. We're not here to lecture or to teach or do anything like that. You may find the information we have informative. Maybe it's something you didn't know about because there's a lot of things that we look up as we're, these topics catch our eye that we don't know, and so we have to look them up. So it's fine. And we asked if you have, perspective or another point of view, or just you want to come in and make your comments or your feelings or your take note on the issue. Feel free to jump in. You can make a comment in the comment sections, and from time to time, I'll be putting a call-in link in the comment section. You can use that to come on and talk to us live. Either way, it's fine with us. We'll read the comments on the air, or comments or questions or statements, and react to them live. So yeah, so always looking forward to your participation, because like I said, it's not just supposed to be a two-way deal. It's supposed to be people jumping in and saying, hey, what about this? Hey, what about that? You think about this? So that's sort of what we're looking for. So again, we thank you for tuning in, and we hope that you will jump in and again, make your voice heard here. That's our goal here at Pass the Noise. Last week we had some kind of strange glitch. I'm really not sure what happened on Facebook, where we just all of a sudden we were on, and then we weren't on, and then we were on, and then people said they couldn't see us or comment or anything. So don't know what happened, but if it happens again, throwing in our into the comment section now the link to our YouTube page. You can go to YouTube. We're broadcasting there live as well. So feel free to go there and check us out. If something happens on Facebook,
the glitch,
yeah, the glitch, the unknown glitch, we don't know what happened.
Myself was like that today. I mean, that's why I couldn't do live at 5 today. My thing was kind of glitching up today. So, man, you never know what's going on. I like, but I want to comment on something. I like what you said about the idea that, that we're, even having to look things up ourselves. Somebody had asked me some time ago, it's like, what makes you guys think that you're the experts on all these topics, right? And one of the things I said was like, we're not claiming to be experts. People would be shocked in research that as topics come up, we have to do research because we don't know everything about every topic. And so as we're growing and learning about topics, that's what we're really doing with everybody else. We're kind of it's an open forum. We're kind of growing and learning together. So hopefully people don't think that we're coming on and saying like we're experts and we have the definitive answer. No, that's why we want people to chime in, because we're coming out here saying we don't think that we have all the answers. We know that some of the answers that we need are going to be in the voices and in the voice boxes and in the fingertips of you all. So we need your participation. That's important.
No, it's 100% right. I guess so. If you watch, may get the sense that we think we're experts. I'm not sure how, because I don't think we present ourselves as experts. I mean, I often say like, oh, I didn't know that. I had to look it up, and then I like this because it's not like this is in my field of expertise. Like I went to school to learn about this. It's like I saw an article, I saw something like that's interesting. Let me learn more, and then you read some more. Maybe you read 4 or 5 different things. Then you form an opinion or you have a take. But that is not expertise, and I just like so we come on here to talk about these things as a way of saying, hey, this is what I saw, this is what I think, this is my opinion, this is my view, and then it's opened up and people can jump in and give their own take and an opinion based on their own experience or perspective or whatever. We're not mad about that. We're not expecting people. Like I said, these are not lectures. They're not meant to be lectures or anything of that nature. So yeah, but with that said, last week I think we teased a topic, and let's just get right into it. Let's watch the clip again, and then we can just jump right in and start a conversation.
Now to a growing problem in Montgomery County schools, a rise in students using opioids. The school system says in recent months, 3 students have overdosed at school and had to be revived. News 4's Amy Cho has more on the important safety message the school system wants all families to hear.
Hey, wake up. Are you okay?
In moments of crisis, every second counts. This Montgomery County school nurse demonstrating how you can help if someone has overdosed on opioids. All schools in Montgomery County carry Narcan, which is medicine to reverse an overdose.
So I'll just say at the top, when I saw that, it was kind of wild that you have to have training in schools and products in schools specifically to reverse the effect of a overdose that someone may experience while they're at school.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of that's kind of out there. It's not really a school problem per se, right? Because it's not like it's not like people are sneaking into somewhere in the school and getting these things. That they're bringing them to school.
Right.
I guess that kind of makes it the school problem, but really the schools are just acknowledging the reality that we have students who are engaging in behavior that is causing them to overdose. It's happening a lot, and we need to do something. I think, in fact, in Montgomery County, they had from the start of the school year until like January, they had like 11 overdoses, 7 of them from mid-December. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, it's not like kids getting sick. Okay, these are kids overdosing in school. I mean, that's really just sort of it's a lot to sort of wrap your mind around. I'm not sure what your take on that in this situation is.
Well, I mean, if you've got kids or grandchildren that I mean, listen, it's beware. Because I mean, the reality is it's the streets, the world that, school used to be a safe haven, and but there were lots of safe havens that used to be there where in some ways, it was kind of like when we're in here, we're really not in the world, right? We're in a way, we're kind of in a completely different environment. Well, the reality is, just as we've gotten to the point where schools have, we've got to make sure that you don't get a gun in, you don't get any weapons in. We've got, not only have we gone past the idea of having, security in schools, but also, you're actually making sure there's metal detectors in school. Then you've got drills to make sure that you're prepared for an active shooter. Right. It only kind of stands, it's kind of the snowball effect. But okay, the next step is, kids are getting, they're getting high in school. They're bringing it to school. They're bringing guns to school. They're bringing drugs to school. So now kids need to be prepared, as teachers need to be prepared on how to deal with something that was never in their training curriculum at all. And that's, I think, the shame of society is that there's nowhere to hide now. Everything is kind of encroaching in on all the so-called safe spaces that we used to have. And nobody's exempt. These are great. These are good schools.
Montgomery County, I looked it up, is the wealthiest county in the state of Maryland, and the school system is like nationally ranked, like the top school. Like these are not like schools that are like decrepit and that falling down, and the kids are like, oh, no, these are high performing schools in wealthy or people are doing fine financially. So it's not finances. They're not doing drugs to sort of, I had to escape my life from this. So now I'm having to eat today. It's not any of that. So, but addiction doesn't care about how much money's in your bank account, or race or religion, none of that. Like addiction just comes for everybody. So this is a case where it should be a wake up call to everyone. Like this is not about people's circumstances. This is about addiction and people getting caught up and thinking, I don't know what they're thinking. I guess they're thinking I can do it and just keep getting high. But people are choosing to engage in this behavior.
Absolutely,
knowing that it's dangerous. So you can scan at the border, you can do impound trucks, you can do all that. But as long as there's the demand for these things, they will keep coming. They will keep getting here some way, somehow.
Absolutely,
finances. So
and it's not vilified. I mean, the reality is, this is a consequence of our society, right? I mean, the idea that drugs are really not vilified in our society anymore. They're kind of uplifted. The movies kind of uplift them. The rappers and the musicians that these same kids actually love are actually doing a lot of the disservice that we see. We're seeing some of the people that they look up to, or actually, kind of encouraging the Percocet. They're encouraging, Oxy. They're encouraging drink some lean and all those things that they make look cool. And so after the video's over, they drive off in their Lamborghini. So you don't see the effect that it really has. They're in the hotel, and so after the music stops, they walk off with the girl. So you never see them in an overdose situation. And this is kind of the fallout, as we talked about guns before, as these guys kind of have these prop guns and in videos, and so they're shooting off a Tommy gun and an AK-7 and one. You don't see, nobody gets hit, but in real life, these are the real life consequences of what is being made to be a game. And that's the scary thing, is that it's really made to be a game, except real live children are really they're paying the price and the consequences for these kind of things that are going on.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, kids wouldn't even have access to these things if adults didn't want them to. It's not like this is going straight for the kids. This is a whole society type of deal. And you also have, like you mentioned, guns and other things that happen in schools. You also have sort of the parents that's like, that's not my kid. My kid would never do that. My kid would never do this. And so you have a situation where the parents are not alert. They're not alert. They're not on their game because they figured my kid would never do that. I know it's happened at the school, but it's not my kid. And so that's another problem. I think the parents have sort of shirked their responsibility in terms of being vigilant in their own homes. I can't go in his room. That's off limits. They pay no bill. They do not. No, that's actually your room that you can do anytime you want, and it's for their own benefit. So the fact that they don't recognize it, I was a teenager. No teenager wants their parents in their room like digging around. But no teenager wants that. But the truth is, it's for your own benefit whether you recognize it or not. And so as a parent who's been a teenager, you know better already. You know that there may be stuff in their room that you need to find. You need to find today that you can address it today before you're addressing it at the mortuary or at the hospital. Like, he OD. That's like, well, it was in your house. I mean, it was in his room. So it's not like he was like, but you don't go in there because there's a sign on the door saying keep out. So you don't go in. You don't know.
And also philosophy. Part of the philosophy, we need to trust them. I think that as parents have changed their philosophy. And I think that not trusting or not trusting their children has become something that is a negative. When in reality, that's where vigilance comes in. I'm not going to trust you to be mature, right? Because you're not mature.
You're not.
I'm not going to trust you to make good decisions, because you're immature. So the searching is an indication that you don't necessarily trust them to make good decisions, and I think that's being vilified. I think the idea that I can't trust that you're going to not take the car, so I'm going to do certain things to make sure you can't get the keys. Why? Because I know you're immature. And again, having been there is what helps. But a lot of what helps is you having been a teenager and now you're operating in a mature situation. One of the problems is that we have children having children. So many of the parents are not yet fully mature. And so their connection to the teenager is so close that you don't really have people who are at a mature space looking at immature people. You have kind of two people who are looking and saying, it's kind of a buddy. It's kind of a friend. Like, I don't want to encroach on his space, because it wasn't that long ago that was looking at that and saying, hey, don't encroach on my space. And I think some of that is problematic in that we've had immature people trying to raise immature people, and that's just a license. That's going to cause problems.
That's a disaster waiting to happen. It is, because to your point, I mean, how can you express maturity? How can you model maturity if you're not mature? You can't. You can't. So that's it's definitely problematic. We have a comment. Let's see what we got Evangelist Keisha Gibson says, although this may seem so shocking in the school, this is what is happening in this time. No different than programs in school when teen pregnancy was high, giving out condoms in school. Sex education has changed to be inclusive for multi-gender, metal detectors, and now Narcan. Schools have to be prepared because this is what it is.
Absolutely. And I think she's totally right. I mean, this is where there's no fighting it. There's no solution. There's no going back. There's no fixing this. It's going to be this and on to the next thing.
Right.
And
she listed a number of things that, so we've kind of been on this sliding, slippery scale, down, versus this, then it's this, then it's this, then it's this. And Narcan is just a nod to the reality of, if we don't do this more kids are going to die. Like, we have two choices. We can pretend, we can say it's not happening, we can or we get Narcan and just try to prevent as many overdoses as possible, because we know they're going to happen. So absolutely a nod to reality. And again, I mean, the extent to which the condoms in the school and the other things that were allowed to happen, and we just sort of said, do that. I mean, and you end up here, sort of the more you have a permissive society that just allows all sorts of things, then you get any and everything, including in the school. The schools, like you said, the schools are no longer like some place where people are, you can't do that in school. You can do that outside of school. Used to be even you gotta at least get off the school ground before you can do that.
Right.
And I was like, why I gotta do that? Now you don't have to do that. Now I just do it right on the school ground. So it's going to be a challenge for schools. It's interesting because this is kind of dumped on the schools, and now the schools have to take some responsibility because the kids are there, right? The kids are there
right.
doing part of the day. They can't just say, that's on the parents. Like they now have to take responsibility, but this is also taking away from their primary responsibility, which is teaching.
Absolutely.
Now I've got to be looking around for this and looking for signs that someone's overdosing or are they passing pills, and now we're checking whatever else they got to do, checking lockers. I think one of the solutions that Montgomery County is trying to implement is more monitoring of the bathrooms. I mean, again, I was in high school. A lot of stuff happens in bathrooms that kids are not supposed to be doing. So they're going to put more of a watch in those areas. But again, it takes away from the primary focus of why the kids are there, why the parents and why these teachers are there. But again, what can you do? I mean, if you don't do that, then now you're not going to have anybody to teach anyway. So
right.
So you gotta do something. And it's sad. I think at the end it's sad. But this is just like one more step down that. I don't know what's going to be next, but it's going to be something.
Well, it's definitely going to be something next. And I think in the end of the day, a part of this, for us, and I think for a lot of the people, is not stopping the slide. This is, what Evangelist put up there. Keisha, she put up some things that kind of show the slide in the direction that we're going. I don't think that any of this is like, here's how we stop the slide. I think that this is now ringing the alarm. It's letting people know. And in some ways, we're really getting down to looking for saving the remnant. As hard as that is, we're really looking at saying, okay, what's the way that we can get some kids who actually want to really learn? How do we get them still through the system? Right. That's really what we're going to get down to, because the whole system is convoluted. The whole system is really messed up. It's already the poison is already in. It's infiltrated the system. So now we're really just how do we get teachers to be able to teach the kids that actually want to learn? Because there's so many now that are going to be inundated with the violence, that are going to be caught up with the drugs, that are going to be a part of the gunplay. So that's going to be really, really hard for the students in this next generation to get through here without not only the temptations, but kind of dealing with the consequences that come from what is now in society that is seeping into the school system, which always was. I mean, in the end of the day, because we didn't heed the alarm bells from the past, we're really in the consequence phase. A lot of this is like, what do we do? And as people are pulling their hair out, there's some of this is like, there's not a lot you can do now. Now it's just maintaining. It's kind of like the person who the doctor said, you can't keep smoking or you're going to get cancer. Well, now, once we're at a certain stage, right, you really aren't looking now and saying, okay, now how do I stop? Like, if I put the cigarettes down, if I don't do this, we're kind of past that now.
Yeah.
And now it is really using that time to give a lesson to the people who are still here, because in some ways that's almost over. Like what we see in schools and what we knew of schools, we're really seeing it's the end of what we as school as we've known it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll never go back to what we had.
Oh, no.
Teachers will never go back to just reading, writing, and arithmetic. They're going to have to expand. They're going to need much greater social skills. They're going to have curriculums that are going to change in the schools of education. They're going to have to now expand into a much more social, psychological area, because now who's coming into these schools? As there's more, if Percocets are out here, at 10-year-olds, what are the 20-year-olds doing? So when they have kids, what are these teachers going to have to learn? I'm going to have to deal, just like they have to deal with crack babies, they got to deal with perk babies. They got to deal with, fentanyl babies. And that's just going to make the school system a nightmare. We're about to enter into a nightmare.
Yeah, pretty much just about there. See, we have another comment. Willie Mae Hill says, many of our children are experiencing some of the same fears and needs of adults, such as depression, insecurity, not feeling loved, etc. So they look for fixes the same way as adults.
Yeah.
I mean, that's partly that's absolutely true. And it's partly a function of the amount of adult stuff that kids are exposed to. So once you expose a kid to adult stuff, they now have adult knowledge. And so they operate in adult realms, so that, they get depressed because, somebody says something to them, or this happened or that happened. It's stuff that they shouldn't, kids shouldn't be burdened with these things. But to Willie Mae's point, our kids it's a burden. They're carrying burdens that are not meant to be carried, not meant to be carried by adults, but certainly not by kids who really are not equipped and mature enough, as we've been talking about, or even mature enough to sort of handle the things that life throws at you and be able to navigate that. I'm not expecting a kid to be able to get behind, the wheel of a car, right, and be able to drive without some training, without some experience. But we're leaving them to deal with emotional things, psychological things, without having any sort of reference point that they can really rely on, and so they're overwhelmed.
Absolutely. Listen, with the sexualizing, the idea of kids having to make decisions about their sexuality, about their gender. I don't think that people recognize the amount of weight we're placing on children. Yeah,
it's a lot.
Now it's weird that we've kind of thrown that at them, and we kind of think that we're doing a good thing. I'm gonna let Johnny decide, at 5 years old, who he wants to be, whether he wants to be a boy or a girl. And I don't think we realize how much weight that I've got to decide now before first grade who I am. That's major. When you deal with the number of kids that are homeless, and as that continues to grow, where I'm going to sleep tonight is a big problem if that's on the shoulders of an 8-year-old. Yeah. What am I going to eat? Protecting my sister and brother from this abusive situation that I'm in. That's a major burden. So to see kids now need the very things that some grown-ups felt like, man, I need a Xanax to get through this. Right. The doctor prescribed me, this medicine to kind of help me to eat. What about the children now are facing the exact same things that their parents are facing, like not less. They're facing the exact same pressures because now the homelessness that's not just my mom's problem. That's also my problem. The abuse that's happening, that's not just my mom's issue. That's also my issue.
Nice.
And so the abandonment, that's not just my dad's issue. That's also my issue. And his parents have really, you remember the days where it's like, we do this, but not in front of the kids. And now children are a part of the discussions.
Yeah.
They go to bed with the same burdens. They're just not mature enough to know. So as adults will say, we'll work it out somehow to work out.
Right.
Kids don't have that mechanism. They don't know. So they left the argument with, and the sky's falling. Now, go to bed and get ready for school tomorrow with the sky falling. That's major. And so we're not looking at kids, I don't think, who are just generally just getting high. I think we're looking at kids who are trying to medicate themselves in so many ways.
It's absolutely something. I mean, some of them may be doing it just to get high, but the strength of the things that they're taking suggests that they are trying to escape some part of their reality. Something in their lives is troubling them to the extent that I need to get away from this right now, because they know they're taking risks and they're willing to do it to sort of escape. So I think it's more about just feeling good. I think to your point, it's trying to cope with these things.
Yes.
I didn't sleep all night, so now I'm out of whack, and I need something, like you said. I need something to bring me down. I need something to mellow me out, and so that's what they're doing. And
our society, though, it's a Red Bull, right?
Absolutely.
It's Monster.
Yeah. Yep.
We don't look and say, in order to get this done, I need to go to sleep.
Right.
We don't look for sleep. We look and say,
5-hour energy.
Here's 5-hour energy. Here's Red Bull. Here's Monster. Oh man, look at this cup of coffee. I can't start my day without this. And so we don't realize that we are an our whole society, America, is an addictive society. And so now that we're actually seeing the cubs, the children who now are following in suit, we're kind of up in arms, but we're already deep in, we kind of the whole world comes here to peddle the medication because they know we're the biggest consumers in the world. And now we, just in the same way that, we used to be the biggest consumers of sneakers. And then our children now became sneakerheads, right? That was something where you were older, and now you got little kids that are sneakerheads. It's not shocking that now consumers, the moment they get money, I'm doing the exact same things because I'm under the same pressure. I'm feeling the same thing. And I also have minimized what getting high is.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Like this is one of the few places, if you look at, you know, the way that they view it in England or in France and some other areas in the world, you'll find out that it's a scourge, right? This is really the one place where it's kind of cool. We got a movie, Cocaine Bear, that's out, and it's, you know, I mean, it's kind of, you know, when you look at it, it's not like, man, they were trying to smuggle cocaine in the bear. It's kind of a cool, like, man, the bear got high. I can't believe he ate a whole bag of cocaine. And so it's a strange thing. It's a weird thing for us. Our over alcohol, you know, Weekend at Bernie's. I mean, you know, all of the movies that we have that show kids just underage just guzzling. They're so cool. It's so cool. And it's not underage drinking. It's not like, man, he passed out. It's not like, what do you have to do to pass out from alcohol? How much you have to drink to pass out? We don't, none of that. That's just really cool here. And so as it's cool, our vaping is cool here. All the things we do, we've made it really cool. We've made cool flavors. So it's not shocking that our children are doing this exact thing that they're doing in the schools. Because the streets are now in the schoolyard.
Right. And that's absolutely true. And there's a dynamic where it used to be, I mean, obviously a adult who needs medication is prescribed. Like you go to the doctor, they whatever, and they just prescribe the medication. Like these things like fentanyl and opioids, they're by prescription only. But the kids are not waiting for the prescription. And, and if they're able to get it, why would they wait? They're like, I need it. I'm going to get it. I'm not going to the doctor. In some cases, they're not telling their parents that they're feeling these things. They're just like, I'm just going to self-medicate. I'm going to handle this myself because they've been left to handle adult things. So like, well,
absolutely,
it's on me. I guess I'm it. So I'm going to go ahead and handle my business.
Right. Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. We have another comment. Willie Mae says, question, do you think that the churches are equipped to deal with the person overdosing on fentanyl at church? That's a great question.
I think, you know what? I think some. I think some are.
You think so?
Yeah, well, I think some are. Like, I think there's some churches that have embraced the idea that that's real, right? I mean, I think that you have some inner city churches that are dealing with that on a regular basis, that may have, you know, NA or AA meetings at the church.
Okay.
You know, that's a part of that's kind of a part of that community. They're a part of that society, right? So there's some churches that are really entrenched in that recovery community. I think a lot of churches, though, are not. You know, I think that there are a lot of churches that really are, you know, this is, again, kind of the safe haven. That's not here. That's not going to happen here. They're not going to bring any drugs here. And I think that there's still some churches that are under the illusion that I don't need to learn CPR because nobody's going to fall out here, right? And then eventually they start sending their nurses and their ushers to like CPR school, right? Just in case somebody falls out here, you need this. I think they're going to get there. I don't think that they're there yet because I think faith and you know, the idea that like we lay hands here, right? We pray, so we don't need that. The same way there's security, right? There's some places, there's some churches that operate with security. Right, we've got special doors, like you can't go back here. We've got armed guards. There are other churches that are like, no way. I think eventually churches will recognize when they have enough, when it begins to reach the mainstream. I think that's still kind of in our minds an inner city issue. Yeah, still a hood thing.
I mean, I hope that Montgomery County churches are on the ball because those kids are going to their churches, and I mean, some of them, right? And if they're doing it at school, why wouldn't they do it before or when they get why would they just pop a pill? Right. Like I think the delusion is this is a holy place, it is sanctified ground. They wouldn't come in here and do that. And I think that's delusional, right? That's truly delusional because in reality, I mean, to Willie Mae's point, the church should be ready for anything that's happening in the world today, anything and everything. Like kitchen sink type of mentality where we are ready no matter what it is because we don't know what it's going to be. But if it's out there, it's eventually going to be in the church. It's going to be inside the four walls of the church buildings just because people are going to bring it in. Why would they stop it? Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to the view of holiness and my church. You know, we don't play that here. The devil has no room here, you know, so that's those weaker churches. But where we are and we are praying church, we're not going to have that mess here. And I think that delusion can keep some churches at a place where they're not preparing and not ready for what are some eventualities that are meant actually for the church. There's some spiritual things that are there that really only the church can handle. And I think because we kind of have made ourselves, we don't have to handle that. We don't have to deal with that because we don't have that here. So, of course, we look in it. And so as we've looked at people, we've looked and said, we don't have a problem with gays here because we don't play with them here. We don't have them here. We don't have problems with. So the church is becoming less and less effective because it has less and less practice dealing with those things. The better way is to just to ostracize those people and keep them out. We don't have any prostitutes here, so we don't have to deal with that because we run them out of here as soon as they get here. We make them uncomfortable. So we don't, there's no thugs here, there's no pimps here, there's no drug dealers here. We as soon as we see them, we know the devil when we see one, and we're ready to kick them out of there. So we don't have to work in that area of deliverance.
Right.
That's where I think the churches are going to now have to change as well.
Yeah.
They have to change as well, recognizing that, okay, these are some tools as we're in the world, but not of the world. These are some tools we're going to have to really get ready to use. And as unfortunate as it is, it's not going to just be laying on of hands. We're going to probably need some Narcan training in the church in the same way that with epilepsy. Nobody said, well, listen, if they start breathing, just blow on them.
Right.
Just blow the wind of the spirit toward them. No, we said, listen, you made it to do CPR, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So we don't think that like if you have a heart attack that like don't use a defibrillator. Let me just use my finger from God. And no, we use the defibrillator. I think that we're going to have to get real about this real problem. And that clip that you use really is kind of indicating it's coming to a neighborhood near you, wherever you are.
Wherever you are. You can't hide from it. You can't hide from
it.
Wherever. And I think to your point about the church, getting real, I think it's a mind shift. I mean, I think that's a big shift in the way that we think about faith. Like we think about faith as not as not somebody coming in overdosing on fentanyl. I mean, but unless you can pray all the fentanyl out of the world, there's going to be people in your orbit who may be abusing fentanyl.
Absolutely. And we need to be prepared to help them to, live so they can hear the word. Right.
Right. I mean, right. I mean, be ashamed they came to church, right? Overdosed, and then we didn't have any way to revive them, and they died in the church because you didn't have Narcan. That would be kind of crazy.
I mean, do we just had 7 deacons around them? Same 7 deacons that couldn't do anything with the overdose, so going to be 7 ones that are going to help them get on the gurney, right?
Right.
And at the end of the day, we just have to get real about this. Like this is really here. This is coming to a neighborhood near us, and so it is time for I think everybody to really get real and to really be on the lookout and be suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, getting back to that and looking at our children differently, looking and saying, you know what? I mean, you can't be tired. You can't be that tired, right? Why are you looking like that? I mean, you just fell asleep when I was talking to you. Yeah, I was up all night with the paper. Listen, you're 15. I mean, I watch you stay up all night and then, watch a movie all night, dip up with your friends, and then you out playing basketball the next day.
Right.
All of a sudden now it's just like, oh, that science project. Don't worry about me, Mom. I just no way. And so we want to delude ourselves.
Yeah.
We want to believe the lie. We want to believe not me. We are prepared to deal with it if it comes to our home. So instead of being ready to deal with it, we'd rather look away.
Yeah, I think there's value in having a suspicious mind, especially when you're dealing with an immature person. Like they're saying one thing, could be true, but it kind of doesn't make sense. It's sort of like, but let me verify. Like I think we've gotten to the point where we say we're not willing to go the extra step. Let me make sure. Let me make sure that this is good. Let me make sure they're not doing it. Let me make sure, this doesn't so. And I think that's sort of a thing of the past where, your parents would stop in your room whenever they wanted to, go through your pockets, your jacket pockets, whatever, if they wanted to. Like I think that's sort of the kids keeping the parents out of their sphere, out of their spaces is a fairly sort of new phenomenon where the parents are like, well, you got to give them their space. You got to let them work out their own things. You got to let them do this. You got to let them do that. Almost like they forgot what it was like to be 13. Like, were you able to work out your own stuff when you were 13?
Right.
Or were you freaking out? Were you able to handle, a little bit of this stuff? No, because you're 13. And so the world is very different when you're 13 and somebody says, man, we're having whatever issues. To a 13-year-old who's never had a job, it's insurmountable. How can we're finished, right? We're going to be destroyed.
Right.
Like, not really. It's going to be hard. We're going to have to cut back, right? We're not going to be able to go to the movies every Friday. We're going to have to be able to do this.
Right.
It's going to be okay. Like the 13-year-old mind can't really deal with all of that because they're not meant to. A 13-year-old isn't meant to be handling that. That's the
Well, here's the thing. Just like you said, though, you said it, but it's going to be okay. Right. So when you got a society that is also dealing, the sky is falling. Right. When the adult doesn't think it's going to be okay, when the adult doesn't have any faith, when the adult is literally on the verge of suicide every other month, then you don't have an adult saying it's going to be okay. You just have an adult saying, yeah, and they're going to cut it off next week. And I don't see a way to get it. And listen, I'm on the phone talking about this to my aunt. But listen, don't worry about you being right there. I'm just telling her, I don't know what we're going to eat. And so we're heaping these on children. And of course, they're bearing the weight of things that they really shouldn't have to bear, and they can't actually bear. As we look at our movies, you see these movies and you watch these movies of guys, fathers or even mothers, and they're knocking on the door and they're, get away from my door. And honey, I know you're upset. And like the whole scene they do from the door. Listen, I know you're upset. I probably should have been at the game, like I said I would, but listen, I gotta apologize to you. Can I come in? Yeah. No, go away. All right, well, listen, when you're feeling better, I'll be downstairs. And so we've developed a society where this now is the rule. The scripture says, and the children are going to lead you, right? Aren't we now watching the shift? And now here's the thing, that, the women shall rule over you, the children shall lead you, right? Looking at all this, the children leading, this isn't just about children leading, but it's also about the consequences of children in a leadership role.
Right.
He's my little man. Well, guess what happens when you put that on little man?
Right.
He's been the only one. I mean, it's been me and him since, I was 16 and, I had him, and he's my little man. Well, look what we're doing to little man. He can't be a little man at 8. He's not. He can't be a little man at 10. And when he has little man weight, and when he's dealing with your dates, and when he's dealing with the third uncle, that's Uncle John, another uncle. So when he's dealing with all those things, we're shocked that he is like, sitting back with Oxycontin in his mouth and a needle in his arm. And we're looking and saying, what do you have to worry about? You just gave me all your worries since I was 6 years old.
Right.
And we kind of look at it, when, I got my Jack Daniels and I'm coming in, I'm saying, it was a crazy night, down at the bar, and I mean, I'm stripping, but I don't want, I'm stripping so you don't have to still have to see it. So I still got my tassels on, and we don't even realize as we watch those movies, those are like all moments. Man, she loves her son. And we don't realize, like, what is she doing? She's sitting there like she's talking to a bartender.
Right.
And he's giving advice and he's like, cheer up, Mom. It's going to be all right. And we kind of think it's cool. And we don't realize, man, like a bartender, she just sidled up to his bed, poured her heart, her grown-up issues onto his bed. And now he's saying, let me find a way to make sure you're okay. He's tucking her in. And we think it's so cool when he gets up at night and he sees her still on the couch and he walks into the bedroom and he tucks her in and he gets his books in the morning, goes to school, and it's like, wow, that's a little man. And we have no idea what damage that does. She's supposed to tuck him in. She's supposed to get him up for school. He's not supposed to remind her, hey, don't forget, Mom, your second shift. So when we mess the roles up, just as we're doing with gender, right? Just as we're doing with gender, as we screw these roles up, we have no idea as we deal with this witch's brew what we're doing.
No. And yeah, I mean, we're sort of taking, it's not even the short route. It's just sort of the head in the sand route. Because to your point, I mean, the things we see when the kids are running the show, I mean, the kids are sort of dictating what the parents can and can't say to them, when they'll talk to them,
absolutely,
about, how long they'll talk to them. Like they just, I'm out of here, and they just throw their stuff down, and go and slam the door in the room. It's like, you slammed my door, like.
And she's the psychiatrist trying to figure out how do I reach him? How do I talk to him? What am I doing? What am I doing wrong? You mean the guy who just ran up and slammed the door and told you he didn't want to eat now?
Right.
Sit down and eat. I'm not eating. You made me mad. I'm going now. But we really are in if they are in the leadership role, if children lead, if young people are leading in the church?
This is what we get. Yeah.
I mean, we look at our churches and we're wondering like they're haywire, and we're looking and saying, well, there's no older people here. There's no one leading here. The young people are running the show. What happens when that happens? You know, you just don't have, like when you look at NFL, look at the coaches, right? Coaches are older people generally, right? They have some experience. Right. Now, you can't have coaches. You couldn't have a 19-year-old coach of an NFL team.
Right. No.
And expect that to work out well with men. And if you did, you're going to run that team in the ground. Well, that's what we're running our little teams called family into the ground.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Super. That's putting it. Yeah. That's putting it mildly. A couple more comments. William A. Hill says, "Come on, church people, speak up. Let us hear from you."
Come on, church people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, there is a discussion to be had.
If possible. Yeah, there is a discussion. I was going to ask you, what do you think? I mean, so what should be? Because I know we have this whole separation of church and state. What should be the relationship between the church and like the schools? Like, should the church be trying to intervene in these issues in schools?
You can't. The church has to just be more powerful in its sphere. You know, the church has always had its own lane, right? But the reason why the church was so powerful was that it operated powerfully in its lane. Now the church doesn't know what the lane of the church is not dictated by the government. Church separation, church and state. Fine. Yep. We have the kids before they go to school. Right? We train them. We raise them up. So the reality is parenting was more powerful than the school at one point. Now we have the school being more powerful than the parents. And so when you have that topsy-turvy, the church doesn't need to intervene in that relationship. It needs to be that shining light that in the midst of this darkness, when people look up and say, this is crazy, it needs to know where to go. As you look at this, as the sea is whirling around, there's a lighthouse, right? That you know, when you have everything is going crazy, the lighthouse kind of tells you, okay, that's where safety is. The light's off. That's where the problem is. You know, remember the scripture says that we're like a light sat on a hill, right? And who lights up a candle but puts a bushel over it? Well, we have the bushel over it. As people are looking, they're not looking for the church. The church can't just come in, right? The church was invited in. Right, the separation of church and state was there long before this discussion we're having now. You know why the church? You know why the church was in schools? It was invited in. Right, they invited us in. So because we were powerful, we were a light. We brought morality. You know, so they invited us in. The reason why they've X'd us out is because there's no light. There is no sense of morality. We're kind of up and down. We want to be popular, so we are not going to be able to do. We can't be different than parents. Parents want to be popular, right? They want to be cool with their kids. Right. The reason why you brought the church in was because you knew, even if I'm not cool, I'm going to bring somebody in who's not going to be cool with them, who's actually going to be the disciplinarian, who's going to tell them right or wrong. And so now that we've gotten cool, now that we want to play basketball instead of talk about the gospel, right? We want to come up and say, hey, don't call me Reverend, call me Rev. And matter of fact, call me Rev T, you know, and so matter of fact, no more Rev T, call me Big T, you know, we've gotten so cool and we've become so much like the world that the school isn't inviting us in. The school said we already have that. We brought Jay-Z in last week. We already have that. We brought Nas in last week. You know, we have Kanye coming next week. Kim Kardashian's coming. We don't need you guys. You guys are just like them. We don't need any more celebrities. They're bigger than you. When we were looking for morality, we used to look for you. But now, since you guys don't operate in morality, you operate in pop culture. Well, then if we're going for pop culture, we might as well have Lady Gaga. Right. You know, we Beyonce's better than you guys. So what am I going to do with having an evangelist over here? Because you guys are not really holding up a banner that is higher than the kids. That's the difference. We're not trying to get them to look up. We've decided to come down and be right where they are. And there was a reason why the kid, when you brought in, you know, doing you know, those school days, you brought in a firefighter because it was something to look up to, right? You could bring in a minister because that was something to look up to. Now that these guys have decided to come down, the only ones that are up are basketball players and football players. You tell us morality, Charles Barkley. Come on, Shaq. You tell me what to do. I'll take one of your clips. You know, hey, listen, marriage coming from a preacher? Nah. Steve Harvey, Why don't you tell us the laws, the 7 laws of marriage? You know, it's crazy, but it's really a reproach. They're no longer inviting us in because we don't have anything special. And that's what we were supposed to be. We were supposed to be peculiar people, different. And when you lose that, you lose the salt. So who needs that kind of salt that doesn't have any savor anymore?
Nobody. I think to your point, I think that this made it special, but made the church special was it was set apart. It was different.
It was set apart.
What you got. You couldn't get what you get there anywhere else. It was one.
Pastors could talk to you differently than school teachers could.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it was almost like a coach. Remember, in a school they couldn't even touch you, but a coach, if you ran past him, he could grab you by your shoulder pads and pull you right back, and there was a respect that was there. Yeah. Right. A pastor could stop you because of what you said. Whoa, what you do? What just came out of your mouth? Now that's eroded, and parents have helped to erode that. They stop teaching children that that's a place of respect. And since they stopped teaching in the home, they went to work as teachers, and they start thinking the same thing. It's not a place of respect because these teachers don't come from Mars; they come from the same society.
Right.
And as they let down in their own personal lives, as they got weak, and these children didn't see powerful men and women of God that were coming from these churches in their parents. Why would they revere the preacher when their dad is still weak after being in church for 30 years? Weak as water. Mom's still crying, depressed. She got as many pills as anybody, but she's like serving the church, and she's been. So I mean, these kids are not stupid. They're looking and saying, no. I know why they didn't invite. I know exactly why they didn't invite us into the church. And I don't know much about the church because mom stopped bringing me. So I don't know reverence either. So what good would the pastor be today with people who are saying, Moses what? Jesus who? Reverend, am I supposed? I mean, I remember in church, I remember going in the back to people and saying, hey, listen, you can't drink that. But I'm talking about full-blown Sprite and orange soda. And I mean, but they were literally looking like, oh, we didn't know. We had no idea that like at a football game, popcorn. You know, I mean, they had no real, I'm serious. Yeah. You know, they had no, and I wasn't mad at them. I wasn't mad at them. I was really mad at these 2 adults that were sitting right next to them. And I realized, you know what? I knew the 2 adults, unchurched. So their children had no knowledge, no reverence. They couldn't respect me. So how are they going to respect their teachers? They can't respect the house of God. How are they going to respect the schoolhouse?
They're not, and we're seeing that. We're seeing that lack of respect trickle down to every institution, whether it's the police, other government officials, whatever else is going on. That people are just sort of like, whatever. Like, you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to fight you at every turn. There's no regard for, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. We're pretty much sliding into I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And you can try to stop me if you want to, but that's what I'm going to do. And yeah, I guess when you remove the church from the equation in terms of a base of power, respect, authority, even when you have no authority in the church, you really have no authority in your community, because the people are simply going to do whatever they think is right. They're going to kneel their own, like, well, you know what? Let me come up with a plan. They don't go to the church and say, let me pray about it. Let me ask the people in the church. Let me have them pray with me. Let me get some godly counsel. Like, people don't seek godly counsel because I don't think they think of it as godly counsel anymore. I think it's because we have all these crazy things going on, and for sure, just because you have preachers and pastors acting out of sorts doesn't mean you should throw it all away. But that is sort of the dynamic that happens, because the truth is people want to do that anyway. They just need an excuse to, like, I knew I wasn't no good. I knew I didn't have to do all those rules. I knew nobody could do all that. Like, they're looking for a reason not to do it, right? Or a reason to say, I can't do it either. They can't do it, so well, I can't. Me neither. So then why am I going to their building 3 times a week? If they can't do it and I can't do it, I might as well stay home and watch the game. But what's the point? And
well, listen, I mean, the pastors are scared. See, listen, here's the thing. What good is it? I mean, the reality is the devil's been the devil forever.
Yep.
Right. He's been the devil forever. God's people have been the people of God forever. And there's always been the need for strong people who were not afraid of the devil. right? That's what made the church what it was. These people weren't afraid of the devil. And, you know, this person, everybody's scared of him, but they brought this man who, you know, who had all these demons. It was just breaking chains. And Jesus comes to this guy and he quells that down, right? People used to do that with the church. I can't do anything with them. Pastor, I brought him to you, right? And so now we have the situation where the men of God are afraid. The women of God are afraid. I'm scared of him. I don't know what to do. So literally at this stage, if you're afraid, what hope do I have? Other than you preaching powerfully and talking about, you know, chasing the devil home. When I realized the truth is, you would never come down here. When I see that at Walmart, when you see those two kids about to fight, you don't feel like you have any dog. You don't have any responsibility. When you hear those kids cursing, and you heard it, we look and say, listen, I mean, I'm not the church as a person. I got to work out. I don't know what these kids are going to do. I'm not going to say anything.
Right.
So we take this time as ministers, we sink back into society for a moment. We're super people on our Bible studies. We're super people on our Sundays, but in our neighborhoods, we close the curtains just like everybody else. We listen, we hear the abuse next door, and there's no plan. I'm just going to pray about it, but I ain't getting involved in it because I can tell you what. Now, the pastors back in the day, that was the difference. That was the difference. Brother Jones was out there. No, you're not going to do this on my watch. People walked away and said, man, that guy was courageous. He said, y'all gonna stop that. And people stopped. And we just look and say, that can't happen today because kids are different, as if the Spirit of God is different. And that's the craziest. I think we're just afraid now. I don't want to die.
Right.
You know, like they control my destiny.
If you let them, if you let them control it, they control it. Absolutely. We have another comment. William A. Hill asks, question, what is the fix for these issues? I think you talked to it a little bit, which is unless and until the church sort of regains a sense of authority, and the individual people, not just the people in the building, but Christians, church people, start saying what, like you said, like, stop doing that. Like, not being afraid to say, stop doing that. You can't do that here. Here's the truth. Like, I think we got to start giving people the truth. Like, if you don't stop doing this, this is going to be the end. If you don't do this, I'm going to. But now we just throw our hands up and say, I can't stop them from doing what they want to do. They're going to do it anyway. So I'm not going to give, I'll get punched in the face. I'm just saying, let them fight. And like you said, Brother Jones used to get in the middle. Like, he'll take a punch to stop the fight. Like, we won't take a punch to stop the fight. So if you don't take a punch to stop the fight, you can't stop the fight.
That's it. Listen, the answer is right there. The willingness to get in to fix this thing the way it needs to be fixed, we're going to have to be willing to take a punch. And we're in a society where there's nothing in us that teaches us to take that punch anymore. That's what we used to be taught. Right. But now we're kind of talk self-preservation. You better not get out there and take the punch. We look at the guy right now and says he tried to stop it and they shot him, and we don't look and say, that's crazy that they would shoot him. We look and say, that's crazy he would get involved in that. Didn't he know they would shoot him?
Right.
So as we vilify Reverend Jones from 40 years ago, right? We dog out the guy from 60 years ago who said, I'm a grown man. I'm not going to just let you sit up there and just beat that lady to bits right in my face. I'm a man. Right. Men don't do that. We now look and say, if we jumped in front of that and stopped it, how many people would be in your timeline? How many people would be DMing you? How many people would be texting you and saying, I saw the video, brother, I'm just praying you use wisdom next time. They wouldn't applaud you for getting involved in that. They wouldn't applaud you for taking the punch. They would tell you right away, you better use wisdom because they would have killed you. Listen, if there's nothing that we're willing to die for, that's a reason why we're willing to stand by like the Walking Dead. Because we don't have anything we're willing to die for anymore. There's nothing that we're willing to take a stand for anymore. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with exercising wisdom. There's nothing wrong with being aware of your surroundings. But I think to your point, that the lack of courage is really the fundamental issue. It's like God's in control of this, but God has called us to like get involved and not just to stay on the sideline. If we're going to stay on the sidelines, what exactly is the point of our existence?
Listen, I saw a video of a girl who was being abducted. Now here's the thing: I saw a video because but these were guys, these were men who were like, "You better let her go. You better let her go." And it was the craziest thing. Now, eventually, because there were so many people, and she was struggling, the guy eventually let her go. But where's the mentality of grown men who are looking and saying, I don't want to even intervene for a child who's being abducted. If I'm not intervening for that child, the Narcan and the fentanyl and all the other things, there's no way that I'm even getting involved in that. If I'm not looking at this and saying, even just as a man, I'm not supposed to sit back with my phone up. Recording her abduction. I'm supposed to be. There was a moment where I'm supposed to be the guy who helped save her. And if we're not saving people and invested in saving them in that realm, how much of investment are we willing to save them in the spiritual realm?
The same. It's the same.
I'm gonna look back and pray.
It's the same, because you're going to get the same blowback from some people, whether you're telling them stop cursing or let me tell you about Jesus. It's gonna be the same. They're gonna look at you the same crazy way. Some people, it's gonna be the same. So if you won't do one, you certainly won't do the other. Why would you? And
if I could literally do it, if I'm as a man, if I'm comfortable looking at this and saying, I thought I was doing my duty by making sure I got the license plate, I got a good picture of his face, but I let him take the girl captive. So as we're watching people take our children captive, we're standing by. The answer to it is for men to stand up and be men again based upon the word of God. Women stand up being women again based upon the word of God. And leaders actually leading, knowing we have a cross. There's some things we may have to take some blows for. We don't have to worry about turning the other cheek, because we ain't putting out a cheek at all. Lord, nobody hit me. Nobody smoked me. I don't have to worry about getting smitten, because I'm not putting myself in a position for anybody to smite me. That's the American way. And unless that changes, we're just going to watch captivity take over our generation.
I think that's well said. I think part of the fix is going to be you have to be willing to put yourself in harm's way for your brother and sister. It sounds simple.
No way around it now.
But that's what it is. And there was a time when people were willing to do it. Was instinct. Like, what are you doing? You can't do that. Like, there's a time when people wouldn't even pick the phone, wouldn't even know what their phone was. Someone's being abducted. I'm jumping off the porch. You can't. I can't get over there fast enough to do it. But now it's like,
that guy's wife. The guy's wife would have told him. Remember, the guy's wife would have said, Johnny, go over there.
What are you doing? Like, you better get over there.
Absolutely. Now she says, I saw him get off that porch, and I was like, Johnny, you better get back here. That's not your child.
That's call the police. Did you call? You should have picked up your phone and called 911. But you don't need to get involved. And that's sort of where we left it. So it does leave us in a sort of powerless predicament, right? Where you really don't have anything to bring to the table unless you have some sort of base of authority. Power. I think part of that, as we've been talking, I think part of that authority and power came from the willingness to take a hit for somebody else. To put it in practice, like, you know what, I'm gonna go out here. I'll sacrifice for somebody, for another. I think that's when people saw that, they were like, now that's somebody I can trust, because he's willing to put his own self, his own self-preservation aside and actually help somebody else who he may not even know. That's the kind of man and woman that I could really listen to. But like you said, when you're ducking and bobbing and weaving and you're hiding behind the thing and you're like, what can I do? Not my fault. I don't want to get shot. I want to live. It's like, it's too, right? When you hold on to what the scripture says about, who tries to hold on to his life is going to lose it. Like, we're so busy trying not to get hurt and not to die, we forgot that. That's sort of like, that's part of the contract. Part of the deal is like, you put your life on the line from time to time. That's part of the deal.
Well, that's what has to be taught, though. I think if we look at fixing,
has to be taught.
Part of that is that we've got to start teaching that there's, as grown men, as grown women, as mature people, there's some stuff that's worth taking a hit for. And that we don't teach that now. We kind of teach wisdom, we teach money, we teach going from here to heaven, but we really don't teach how to live here in a world that's opposed to righteousness. And how we're to oppose righteousness. And some of that's with our physical bodies. I may have to go over there and take that girl, snatch her out of his hand. And that may put me now in a place where he attacks me.
Right.
Isn't that what men were? I took the blow so you wouldn't have to.
Yep.
Right. That's kind of what you put up in the Marines and the Army. We used to. I went to war so you wouldn't have. We did all of those things that we've kind of forgotten in society what men and women are supposed to really look like.
Man.
So the enemy's able to creep in and snatch our children left and right.
Wow. That's true. It's crazy, but it's true. And I want to pick this up some next week because we're over time. But I do want to kind of continue this conversation because I think there's some other things that we had kind of lined up to talk about. I think flow into this whole issue. So, man, great conversation. I definitely want to pick this up because I think this was a great conversation. I think there's more to unpack here, more to sort of lay out in terms of what needs to be done. So I think, we're not the fixing people, but certainly we know what some of these solutions are, and we should I think explore them a little bit more. I think it'd be good.
Do you have a clip of anything that you want to also look at next week?
We were going to continue with because you mentioned sort of like one of the burdens and one of the things that we're putting on kids is sort of dealing with their sexuality at young ages. Let's play a clip of that, and then we can flow into that this week. Yeah, thanks for reminding me of that.
It is clear as day that these Hollywood male executives are objectifying women, not only women, but teenagers. Netflix used the same clause of women empowerment in an Instagram post that they made back in 2019. So Netflix posted this photo of some of the Riverdale castmates, the female castmates, and they captioned it this: "Verified, I love these 3 women. I love how honest they are, how they use their platforms to speak on issues they care about and that matter to young women. And I love that they stand up for themselves and others." With that post, one fan commented this: "They use their platforms to speak on women's issues, but help in the sexualization of teen girls on their show constantly. LMAO, okay." And Netflix responded with this: "I think they play 3 characters in charge of their sexuality, not 3 characters being used by or defined solely by their sexuality. Veronica is a bad A businesswoman. Betty is a loyal friend and dedicated sleuth. Cheryl is a LGBTQ student body president icon. Young women shouldn't feel shame for being sexual humans or for feeling confident or sexy in their bodies. And they certainly shouldn't be reduced to just that when they have a multifaceted character expression." Netflix thought they ate with that one, but let's be for real. 16-year-olds do not need to own their sexuality. What is the purpose of that? Why can't we just have 6-year-olds be confident in themselves by speaking up for things that they feel are not deemed correct? That is a young woman that displays women empowerment. Like, we gotta be for real. Like, stop trying to use the whole women empowerment and sexual liberation as a term to objectify women, because that's how it's used a lot of the times.
I like it.
Yeah, we'll get into that. We have 2 quick comments, and then we're gonna get out of here. Excellent discussion. Thanks for the 2 truth doses. No, thank you for joining in.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining in. Clarice says, "Y'all might as well start extending the time."
I should have known that was going to be Clarice. Look at that picture too. I should have known.
Yeah, we might think about that, Clarice. Thanks.
Listen, I'm enjoying this. I enjoyed the discussion.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
But it's been great.
Yeah, it's definitely been great. Yeah, definitely enjoying it. So maybe we'll stand in this 8:30 since we having trouble keeping it to 8 o'clock. But So thanks again, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you next week at 7. We may go to 8:30.
Right.
See you next week. I hope you'll jump in, and I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks again. Good night, and God bless.
Take care.